The massive oak doors of Providence Municipal Court swung open at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, drawing every eye in the room. A young woman strode inside wearing a flawless white Burberry coat valued at no less than $2,000, a Louis Vuitton handbag slung casually over one shoulder. Her designer sunglasses, Gucci, likely around $400, remained resting on her head even though she was indoors. Everything about 23-year-old Chloe Miller radiated wealth and self-assurance, but it was the smug smile on her face that immediately caught Judge Frank Caprio's attention. In his 37 years on the bench, he'd learned that smirk almost always signaled trouble. Before we get into what unfolded inside that courtroom, if you believe in justice and want to support a new channel committed to sharing these powerful stories, please hit the subscribe button and like this video. Every subscription helps us bring more of Judge Caprio's wisdom into the spotlight. Chloe's heel struck the marble floor with sharp, echoing clicks as she walked toward the defendant's table. Trailing behind her was a visibly nervous attorney in an expensive suit, gripping a leather briefcase that likely cost more than most people's monthly rent. The bailiff called the case, the People vs. Chloe and Miller, case number 2024 TRF 8847. Charges included reckless driving, threatening a police officer, and attempting to interfere with official duties. Judge Caprio looked up from the file before him, reading glasses balanced on the bridge of his nose. The paperwork painted an interesting picture. 3 speeding violations within the past year, all quietly dismissed. 2 parking tickets, both voided. And now this, a traffic stop that escalated into something far more serious. One detail stood out. The arresting officer, Officer Marcus Davis, a 12-year veteran with a spotless record and multiple commendations for community service. Miller, Judge Caprio said calmly, his voice carrying the gentle authority he was known for. Please step forward. Chloe sighed loudly, rolling her eyes as though the entire proceeding was a waste of her time. She moved toward the bench with the relaxed arrogance of someone who had never truly faced consequences. Her attorney followed closely, whispering anxiously, but she brushed him off with a dismissive wave. Ms. Miller, Judge Caprio continued, removing his glasses and looking at her directly, I'm reviewing Officer Davis's report. It states that on the evening of October 15th, you were stopped for traveling 65 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone on Waterman Street. Is that correct? Chloe shrugged. I might have been going a little fast. It's really not a big deal. The courtroom went silent. Even her attorney flinched. Judge Caprio's expression remained unchanged, but those familiar with him recognized the brief pause before he spoke again. Let me be clear, he said evenly. You were driving at more than double the speed limit in a residential neighborhood, past Roger Williams Elementary School, at 3:15 in the afternoon. Do you know what time school lets out, Ms. Miller? I don't really keep track of. 3 o'clock, Judge Caprio said quietly. Children were walking home. Parents were picking up their kids. And you were driving at 65 miles per hour. Chloe's smirk flickered for a split second, then returned. Look, Your Honor, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My father is Chief Thompson of the Providence Police Department. If you just call him, I'm sure this can be cleared up quickly. He's handled things like this before. The air in the courtroom seemed to chill. Judge Caprio leaned back slightly, studying her with the measured patience of someone who had spent decades reading people. In my 37 years as a judge, he said, I've learned that justice cannot operate under 2 standards. The law applies equally to everyone who appears before this court. Your father's position does not alter the facts. Fine, Chloe snapped, her tone sharpening. Then let's talk about the facts. That officer, Davis, he was completely out of line. Rude. Aggressive. Honestly, I felt threatened. I have every right to file a complaint. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. Officer Davis has served this department for 12 years. His record includes 17 commendations, many for de-escalation and community policing. But we won't rely on records alone. Officer Davis was wearing a body camera during your stop. I've reviewed the footage, Ms. Miller, and I intend to play it now. A hint of color drained from Chloe's face, though she maintained her posture. That's really unnecessary. Bailiff, Judge Caprio said, please dim the lights and play Exhibit A. All eyes turned to the monitor. The timestamp read 3:17 p.m., October 15th. The video opened with Officer Davis's calm voice, Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Officer Davis with the Providence Police Department. I stopped you for traveling 65 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. May I see your license and registration? Chloe's voice followed, clear and dripping with contempt. Are you serious? Do you know who I am? Ma'am, I need your license and registration. I'm Chloe Miller. Chief Thompson's daughter. Your boss. Officer Davis remained composed. Your relationship to the chief doesn't change the violation. License and registration, please. This is absurd, Chloe snapped, pulling out her phone. I'm calling my father right now, and by tomorrow you'll be directing traffic in the worst part of the city. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as the video continued. Chloe stepped out of her Mercedes-Benz C-Class, a $45,000 car, and moved within inches of Officer Davis's face. "Listen carefully," she said coldly. "You're going to get back in your little cop car, rip up that ticket, and pretend this never happened. Or my father will make your life miserable. He can transfer you, demote you, or find a reason to fire you. Your career is in my hands." The courtroom was frozen in silence. Even the court reporter paused mid-sentence. Officer Davis stayed calm. "Ma'am, threatening a police officer is a crime. Step back and return to your vehicle." "Or what?" Chloe laughed harshly. "You'll arrest the police chief's daughter? That'd be career suicide." Judge Caprio raised his hand. "Pause the video." He looked directly at Chloe, who now stood rigid, her earlier confidence completely gone. "Ms. Miller," he said, "you threatened an officer's career, his livelihood, his service to this community. You used your father's position, a position meant to uphold the law, to place yourself above it." Her attorney rushed forward. "Your Honor, my client was emotional, but nothing," Judge Caprio said gently, yet firmly. "Please continue." The video resumed. "Ma'am," Officer Davis said, "I'm issuing a citation for reckless driving. The fine is $150, and you are required to appear in court. Additionally, your threat will be documented in my report." "You're making the biggest mistake of your career," Chloe hissed. "My father will destroy you." The video ended. The lights came back up, revealing stunned faces throughout the courtroom. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes, looking every bit his years. When he spoke again, his voice carried deep disappointment. "Ms. Miller, I've overseen thousands of cases. I've seen good people make bad decisions. Parents struggling to pay fines. Seniors confused by the system. Teenagers unaware of consequences. In those moments, compassion is not an exception to justice." He had been listening from just outside the courtroom. His expression was heavy, carved with disappointment and something unmistakably close to shame. "Your Honor," Chief Thompson said, his voice thick as he spoke. "May I approach?" Judge Caprio nodded. The chief stepped forward, stopping beside his daughter, but he did not look at her. Instead, he faced the judge. "Your Honor, I want to apologize to this court and to Officer Davis. My daughter's behavior does not represent the values I tried to teach her or the principles I've spent my career defending. I've served in law enforcement for 30 years, fighting every day for equal justice under the law. And to hear my own child attempt to manipulate that system," his voice broke. "I am ashamed." He turned toward Officer Davis. "Marcus, you are one of the finest officers in this department. The investigation into my daughter's complaint was closed this morning, before I even knew about today's hearing. Your record is spotless, and it will stay that way. I owe you an apology for putting you through this." Officer Davis nodded, professional as ever, though relief and gratitude showed in his eyes. Chief Thompson finally looked at his daughter. The disappointment in his gaze was devastating. "Chloe, I protected you too much. I made excuses for you. I fixed things and shielded you from consequences. I see now that was the worst mistake I could have made. That ends today. You will complete every hour of community service. You will write that paper. You will learn what I should have taught you a long time ago, that no one is above the law." Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Whether they came from shame or anger, no one could tell. Judge Caprio spoke gently. "Chief Thompson, you did not fail as a father. Your daughter made her own choices. I respect you for standing here today and for your integrity. This court has always held your service to this community in the highest regard." The chief nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor. I give you my word, my daughter will complete everything this court has ordered. I will personally make sure of it." As father and daughter exited the courtroom in heavy silence, Officer Davis stepped forward. "Your Honor, thank you. For 3 weeks, I wondered if doing the right thing was going to cost me my career. Thank you for showing that justice still matters." Judge Caprio smiled softly. "Officer Davis, in my 37 years, I've learned that doing the right thing is always worth it, especially when it's hard. Keep serving your community with the integrity you showed that day. We need more officers like you." After Officer Davis left, Judge Caprio remained seated alone in the now empty courtroom. His eyes drifted to the American flag behind the bench. He thought about the countless cases he had presided over, the countless faces that had stood where Chloe Miller stood. Some came with humility. Others arrived wrapped in entitlement. But all left having learned the same truth. "I in this courtroom, privilege offers no shield from justice." Word of that day spread quickly through Providence. The footage of Chloe's traffic stop and courtroom confrontation went viral, viewed millions of times within days. Across the country, people weighed in. Some praised Judge Caprio's firmness. Others debated whether the punishment was too severe. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing: the system had worked as it should. Power had not erased accountability. 3 months later, Chloe Miller completed her final hour of community service at the Providence Community Center. The experience changed her in ways no one expected. Working with at-risk youth, many from families facing poverty and systemic obstacles, opened her eyes to reality she had never known. She helped with homework, assisted with meals, and listened to stories that stayed with her long after the day ended. On her final day, she sat with Maria Santos, a 15-year-old girl she had been mentoring. Maria's mother worked 3 jobs to keep their family afloat. Maria herself was determined to be the first in her family to attend college. Miss Chloe, Maria asked, "Why are you doing community service here?" Chloe could have lied. She didn't, because I made terrible choices, she said. I thought being the police chief's daughter meant I didn't have to follow the same rules as everyone else. I was wrong. I hurt people. This is my second chance to learn what really matters. Maria nodded. My mom says making mistakes doesn't make you bad. What matters is what you do afterward. Those words stayed with Chloe when she returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom to present her civic responsibility paper. She was no longer the arrogant young woman who had first walked in. The paper wasn't just academic, it was deeply personal, a reflection on privilege, responsibility, and the necessity of equal justice. Judge Caprio read it carefully, then looked up. Miss Miller, this is excellent work. More importantly, I can see that these past 3 months have taught you something real. Tell me, what is the most important lesson you've learned? Chloe paused before answering. That money can buy comfort, but never character. That my father's position gave me opportunities, but it was my responsibility not to abuse them. That Officer Davis deserved respect, not threats. And that justice either protects everyone or it protects no one. For the first time since she entered his courtroom, Judge Caprio smiled. Those lessons took me years to learn. I see them not only in your words, but in your actions. You have completed every requirement this court set. Your case is closed. As Chloe turned to leave, the judge added one final thought. I've done this job for 37 years. Do you know what keeps me coming back? Moments like this. Watching someone realize that compassion is not an exception to justice, it is the purpose. You came here believing you were above the law. You leave understanding that the law exists to lift us all. 6 months later, Chloe Miller surprised everyone. She enrolled in law school not to follow her father into law enforcement, but to pursue public interest law and serve underserved communities. She continued volunteering at the Providence Community Center, no longer as a sentence, but by choice. Officer Marcus Davis received the department's Community Service Medal and was promoted to sergeant. His internal investigation file was not just closed, but erased. Chief Thompson implemented new department-wide training on ethics and equal treatment under the law, using his daughter's case as a reminder that privilege must never influence justice, and Judge Frank Caprio continued to preside over Providence Municipal Court, treating every person who entered, whether dressed in designer clothes or work boots, with the same dignity and fairness. In his courtroom, only character mattered. If this story moved you, if you believe judges like Frank Caprio represent justice at its best, support our new channel by subscribing and liking this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that justice and compassion can coexist. Comment below with your city. The lesson of that October afternoon echoed far beyond Rhode Island. It reminded everyone that in America, the law is meant to apply equally to all. Sometimes that principle is tested. Sometimes power tries to rise above it. But on that day, in that courtroom, justice prevailed, because in the end, the courtroom truly is the great equalizer. It is the very purpose of justice. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the courtroom. But what I just saw on that video was not a mistake. It was not someone having a bad day. It was a deliberate attempt to corrupt the justice system through privilege and intimidation. You didn't simply violate the law, Miss Miller. You tried to undermine the spirit of the law, the fundamental idea that everyone stands equal before it. Chloe's jaw clenched. Her attorney placed a cautioning hand on her arm, but she brushed it aside. With all due respect, Your Honor, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It was just a traffic stop. Everyone's acting like I committed some serious crime. If Judge Caprio's compassion moves you the way it moves millions of others, show your support by subscribing to our channel. We're just getting started, and your subscription truly means everything. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Let me make sure I understand you. You believe driving at twice the speed limit past an elementary school is not serious? You believe threatening a police officer who was simply doing his job is not serious? You believe attempting to use your father's position to avoid accountability is not serious? I believe, Chloe snapped, her voice rising as her composure finally cracked, that this entire court is wasting my time. I have places to be. I have a life. And honestly, I don't think you understand how things actually work in this city. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Her attorney's face went pale. He tried to intervene, but Chloe wasn't finished. My father practically runs this city. One phone call from him and half the people in this courthouse would be out of a job. So maybe, Your Honor, instead of lecturing me about the law, you should think about who you're dealing with. The silence that followed was suffocating. Judge Caprio sat completely still for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, yet it carried to every corner of the room. In my 37 years on this bench, I have heard many things. I have been threatened, cajoled, and occasionally insulted. But never has someone stood in my courtroom and suggested that justice should bow to power, that the law should bend to privilege. He opened a folder on his desk and removed several documents. Miss Miller, do you know Officer Marcus Davis's story? Let me tell you. He grew up in South Providence. His mother cleaned houses to put him through community college. He became a police officer because he wanted to make his neighborhood safer. Every Tuesday night, he volunteers at the Boys and Girls Club. He coaches basketball for kids who see him as a role model. And you threatened to destroy his career simply because he had the courage to do his job. Chloe opened her mouth to respond, but Judge Caprio raised his hand. I'm not finished. After your traffic stop, do you know what happened to Officer Davis? His supervisors summoned him for questioning. Because of your father's position, an internal investigation was opened and dragged on for 3 weeks. This man, a good man who serves his community with honor, has spent weeks under scrutiny, waiting to see whether a false complaint from the police chief's daughter would end the career he has devoted his life to. The judge picked up his phone and pressed a button. Bailiff, is Officer Davis present today? Yes, Your Honor. He's waiting outside. Please ask him to come in. The doors opened, and a tall African-American man in his mid-30s entered wearing his dress uniform. Officer Marcus Davis walked with quiet dignity, his medals catching the light. He stood at attention, his expression carefully composed, though the strain of the past weeks was visible in his eyes. Judge Caprio addressed him directly. Officer Davis, thank you for being here. I want you to know I have reviewed the body camera footage multiple times. Your conduct during that stop was exemplary. You displayed professionalism in the face of threats and intimidation. This court recognizes your service and your integrity. Officer Davis's jaw tightened with emotion. Thank you, Your Honor. Furthermore, Judge Caprio continued, I will be sending a letter to your supervisors commending your actions and recommending that the internal investigation be closed immediately with a full exoneration. Any complaint filed by Ms. Miller should be dismissed as frivolous and retaliatory. For the first time, genuine fear crossed Chloe's face. She leaned toward her attorney and whispered urgently. He shook his head, his expression grim. Judge Caprio turned back to her. Miss Miller, listen carefully. The courtroom is the great equalizer. Inside these walls, it does not matter if your father is the police chief, the governor, or the president. Your designer clothes, luxury car, and family connections hold no value here. In this room, there is only one currency, truth and justice. He glanced at his sentencing notes. For reckless driving and threatening a police officer, I am fining you $500 and suspending your driver's license for 90 days. Additionally, you will complete 100 hours of community service. You will serve those hours at the Providence Community Center in South Providence, under the supervision of the youth program director. You will work in the same community Officer Davis serves, the same community you endangered. Chloe's face flushed crimson. You can't be serious. 100 hours in South Providence. Furthermore, Judge Caprio cut in, his voice sharp and final, for your contemptuous behavior in this courtroom and your blatant disrespect for the principles it represents, I am imposing an additional $1,000 fine. You will also attend a civic responsibility course on the role of law in a democratic society. You will write a 5-page paper on the importance of equal justice under the law and present it to this court in 60 days. This is insane, Chloe shouted. You're punishing me because of who my father is. This is discrimination. Judge Caprio remained unmoved. No, Miss Miller. I am holding you accountable for who you are. You are an adult who chose to break the law, endanger others, threaten a public servant, and mock the justice system. Your father's position does not excuse your behavior. It makes it worse, because you should have known better. He closed the file. Rules exist to serve people, not to be weapons for the privileged. Justice cannot have two standards, one for those with connections and one for everyone else. Today, you stand like every other person who breaks the law in this city, and you will face the same consequences. Her attorney finally spoke. Your Honor, may we request a brief recess to consult? Denied, Judge Caprio said calmly. Ms. Miller has been given every opportunity to show respect, remorse, or basic decency. She chose defiance. The sentence stands. He looked directly at Chloe. You have 14 days to begin your community service. Failure to comply will result in contempt charges and possible jail time. Do you understand? Chloe stood frozen, her face a mix of shock and fury. Her carefully built armor of privilege had shattered, revealing someone who had never before been told no. Yes, Your Honor, she said quietly. Good. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck like thunder, but what happened next stunned everyone even more. As Chloe turned to leave, still reeling from the sentence, the courtroom doors opened once again. A tall man in a police chief's uniform walked in. Chief Robert Thompson, Chloe's father.